Breath of the Wild 2's second trailer just released, and it raises tons of questions immediately. Honestly, there's so much to this new game and the implications it has on what exactly happened once quote-unquote dry Ganondorf was found. So in this video, we're going to quickly cover as much as we can given the information that we have. And of course, if you love Breath of the Wild, consider subscribing, as I do lots of weird videos covering strange things, like making Calamity Ganon run away from Link in the final fight, or dropping bosses off of towers. But we need to talk about what happened to Link, the world around him, and quite frankly, how much time has passed between the first and second trailer. Because I think there's a reason we never see Link's face in the entire trailer after he gets grabbed. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is how the environment changed. Breath of the Wild had a ton of depth when it came to the sweeping landscape. So the only way to one-up that experience was either to scale the map out beyond the corners of the world, create expansive caverns, or take to the skies like Skyward Sword. And from what we can tell, it looks like Hyrule Castle wasn't the only island to rise into the sky. And this is interesting, because up until this point, we weren't sure how the developers were going to tackle the world building in Breath of the Wild 2. Simply reusing the same world might feel stale. So it's really neat that they decide to potentially terraform the world by having it destroyed as tons of islands rise to the sky. Now, this isn't to say that there isn't also expansive caverns, as we can see Link battling a giant worm monster underground. But by expanding the scope of the world into the skies above, they truly are making this open world map feel twice as massive. But this again raises another question. We see that this is happening, but when did it happen, and when is Link actually back out and exploring the world? Now, we're in Theoryland here, but I'm wondering if Link unfortunately met the same fate as before. Hear me out. We see that Link was grabbed by the mysterious spiritual hand in the first trailer, and when we see him in the second trailer, he's getting overrun by malice. Ganondorf, or the figure we're assuming is Ganondorf, is shown influencing the malice that we see. But it isn't until 40 seconds into the trailer that we finally see the next scene in the sequence of events. Link's arm now wears the gauntlet that the mysterious spiritual hand once did, and Link appears to be laying on the ground. But he isn't in the same outfit as before. He's once again in his boxers. And that's not the only change. We can tell it's been a long time. At least several weeks or a month since we last saw Link, because his fingernails have grown very long. This leads me to believe that somehow Link or Zelda severed the seal on Ganondorf, and the hand reached in retaliation for the next thing. And that was Link. This gave Link new abilities, or more specifically, seemed to turn his arm into a fully functioning Sheikah Slate, as we can see Link using various abilities just through his arm. This passage of time is also why Link looks so disheveled in his starter outfit. His hair is long and unruly, and he doesn't exactly have the positive charm that his character normally gives off. Maybe it's just the music choices in the trailer, but it almost feels like we're looking at a broken hero. I don't get a positive vibe from him. It feels like a Metal Gear Solid Snake who has seen too much and is just jaded. And I think the reason we don't see Link's face is because the malice that overtook him changed his face. I wouldn't be surprised if one of his eyes was a different color or corrupted, given that the malice overran his entire body. So let's just assume for the hell of it that Link once again was sealed for a long time. I imagine the very first thing you do in the game is jump off the island you were sealed on. I'm not sure why Ganondorf, if restored to power, would leave Link alive, but perhaps due to the risk of getting sealed again, it made sense to flee instead of deal with him then and there, just because the hand that held him hostage was still very much aware of what was going on. Again, this is all speculation for the fun of it all, but I'd imagine that Link's tomb, or rather the new Shrine of Resurrection, was now up in the sky, and when he awakened and saw that his body was disfigured by malice, the jaded hero woke up and saw that the world before him completely changed. Quite the brutal realization to make, and quite the weight to carry on your shoulders as you jump into this changed world, knowing you have to fix it all. But is this even the reality we think it is? That's where things get super convoluted. Think back to Ocarina of Time and how the timeline split. Majora's Mask felt darker and more dreamlike than Ocarina of Time. We've been told that Breath of the Wild sequel will be darker than the original, potentially in terms of atmosphere, but also concepts. And then we have Age of Calamity, the prequel, non-prequel to Breath of the Wild. The story in that game took place in a different timeline, since time travel changed the flow of events. The outcome in Age of Calamity was entirely different than what had occurred before Breath of the Wild. But that's why I bring this up. Majora's Mask felt almost like an alternative world to Ocarina of Time, where lots of the same characters appeared but assumed different roles. Who's to say this isn't an alternative spin to Link's Shrine Awakening? A separate timeline where Link waking up in the Shrine of Resurrection is different, not only by location, but by how he got there. So the starting point for Breath of the Wild 1 and 2 is the same, and the world is mostly the same, but it's the different circumstances of the timeline that changed everything. It's kinda weird to think about. In this example, Link waking up wouldn't be as jaded as a Link who already saved the world once. Regardless of when it takes place, it's very apparent that the Link we play as will be changed, from having a gauntlet fused to his arm to strange symbols printed over his body. It might hunch that something is different about his face, and more specifically one of his eyes. Malice simply wouldn't have left him behind without changing something about him, as we can see what it clearly does in Age of Calamity to those consumed by it. similar to what happens to Ashitaka in Princess Mononoke. With that said, it makes you wonder if Age of Calamity's new weapon will also make an appearance in Breath of the Wild 2. It mimics a 3-piece staff, but has almost like hookshot abilities. It almost looks like the Guardian arms combined with the strange energy that the ghostly hand was made of. It'd be neat to see the inclusion of new two-handed weapons that weren't considered heavy weapons, but more so focused on fast hitting and crowd control type situations. But I digress. There's a lot to consider with Breath of the Wild 2's new trailer, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything in the comments below. But with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers!